One.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective here on the Ayn Rand Center UK, the show that's been keeping track of what's going on in the world for the last few months since we launched. And today I'm going to be doing this solo. So I definitely could use some of your participation in the chat room, especially the super chat. You know, if you're feeling a little bit guilty about me doing this show by myself, I'm talking to you, Rozzy, behind the scenes. Feel free to super chat and show your support. But anyway, let's talk about what we're here to talk about today. Today is the final day of the current administration before the inauguration tomorrow. And I was actually looking forward to this episode, and it's a good time for me to do this solo because we are gathered here today to talk about a man who, love him or hate him, he has been the bane of America's existence and therefore the world's existence for what seems like a lifetime, what seems like a long stretch of time, yet also feels like the blink of an eye. And that's part of the magic of Donnie J. Trump. He is a fascinating person in a certain respect, and by the same token, just kind of a schmuck that somebody pulled out of an office. Somebody in the 80s said, hey, this billionaire has got a good personality for TV. He's got some chutzpah. Let's make him a celebrity. It's hard to exactly figure out what happened here, but I want to tell you about the Donald Trump that I knew. Back in around 2005, when I was a high school graduate, just kind of starting to learn about the world, learning how the world works, living in an apartment with a bit of a marijuana dependency, a bit of an alcohol problem, a chronic cigarette smoker. This was a long time ago. People used to smoke cigarettes. And I used to turn to the television set for some purpose and direction. Now, at this point in my life, I had read Ayn Rand's novels and was deeply impacted by them. But as we know, that's only the beginning, right? There's so much left to learn about the philosophy, which is why so many people, including possibly Donald Trump, have read Ayn Rand's novels and have ended up nowhere close to what Ayn Rand was offering. So I was deeply inspired by Ayn Rand, but still very much susceptible to various conflicting ideas, which obviously speaks to the way I was living. Like I mentioned, I was not living in a healthy way. I was still living hedonistically and in a very unhappy manner. So there was a show on TV called The Apprentice, featuring Donald Trump and various ambitious business people, I think largely in the business of marketing. They were kind of auditioning for a job, I think. They were interviewing for a job, and their goal was to either get people to go to a certain location or to get people to buy something or just in some way market a product, showcase a company's product, fulfill the wishes of various big companies. And that was usually the task at hand. And a lot of these business people became celebrities as the result of participating in this show. But it became an actual Celebrity Apprentice within a few years, I believe. And that's when it really got interesting, because now you had famous people, some of them a little bit washed up in their careers, but some of them not. Some of them doing fine. I mean, it's not inconceivable to imagine, the Mark Pellegrinos and the Jonathan Hoenigs of the world on Celebrity Apprentice. It's various levels of success that these celebrities were bringing with them. And when they were in that boardroom, they were begging Donald Trump, please don't fire me. Fire the other team. Fire the other guy. Donald, please, I've done everything right. I've worked so hard for you. Please don't fire me. They were groveling before this Trump fellow. And I just thought Trump looked so cool. I was like, this guy's so confident or something. He is who he is, and he's doing what he's doing, and he's somehow getting a bunch of famous people to kind of beg him for this job. So I found the show very fascinating, very entertaining. I became a Celebrity Apprentice fan. I used to watch it. And then came Trump, the political pundit. That's what, around 2010, I think, 2011, Trump started speaking about President Obama. And I think Trump was the first celebrity, the first sort of public figure outside of conservative media. So he was not a talk show host. He was not a Fox News pundit, but just a mainstream entertainer who was criticizing Obama, like, very strongly. And that was kind of new. And I think it sort of made a lot of sort of disenfranchised people feel like it's okay to criticize Obama. Obviously, political correctness advised against criticizing Obama too strongly. But that was not enough. See, Trump, he tends to, a lot of people, not only Trump, a lot of people on this sort of reactionary right, they latch onto legitimate grievances and they package it with BS. So in the case of Obama, there was a lot to criticize him over. But of course, Trump lumped that together with the birther conspiracy, or I don't know if, I guess conspiracy is the word, saying that Obama was not born in America. He was questionably not born in America. It's possible. We haven't seen the birth certificate. Why won't Obama show us the birth certificate? And I never took any of that stuff seriously until I heard Trump talking about it. Then I was like, I mean, I still don't really see why it matters, but Trump feels so strongly about this. And the way Trump was talking, he was saying, I've got people looking into this. You would not believe what these people are finding. You would not believe what they're finding. I've got the best people looking into this thing. Believe me, I have the best people looking into this. And you would not believe what they're finding. There's something Obama doesn't want us to see. And I was just like, okay, I guess we should look into this. I mean, Trump seems to know his stuff. So he sort of knows how to command an audience, or he seemed to kind of get people like me, young, largely sort of unfocused young people like myself, to kind of say, all right, I'm not quite sure what this guy's deal is, but he seems like a good leader. He seems like he knows what he's talking about, and whatever he's sort of pushing towards, let's investigate. And I still didn't care that much about the birther issue, but sort of Trump made it seem important. And, I think I speak on behalf of the Ayn Rand Center UK here when I say, even if Obama wasn't born in America, that would not necessarily disqualify him from being president, because we've had like Mitt Romney's father run for president. We've had Ted Cruz run for president. They were both not born in America. They were born a citizen of America, but not born in America. And by all accounts that I've seen, it's perfectly legitimate to run for president and become president as long as you were born a citizen. You don't need to be born on U.S. soil. So let's say Obama was born in Kenya. It wouldn't really matter. And I think I speak on behalf of the ARC UK when I say it would be beautiful if a guy named Barack Hussein Obama was born in Kenya, born a citizen because of his mother, and discovered the beauty of the United States, its principles, its founders' founding principles, and fell in love with the USA as it was meant to be, ended up running for president and being an excellent president. That would be a beautiful thing to see how these principles transcend culture, so to speak. They transcend continents and places of birth, right? So the fact that Trump was making such a big deal about where was Obama born, he was not a constitutional scholar who really just wanted to know if Trump is technically able to be president. I think Trump was tapping into a kind of an ugly side of America, or a sort of boondocks, not the cartoon, but the boonies, middle of nowhere, the Rust Belt, the rural South, various regions of the country where people, they kind of want a president that looks like them, that has a similar family, similar upbringing. And the idea of Obama not being born in America is not just a technical question to them. And so Trump, as long as he's been talking about politics, I think he's been sort of tapping into that ugly side, that sort of populist sort of, as in Obama's words, sort of people who cling to their guns and Bibles. Now, again, there's a lot wrong with Obama. And I will actually fast forward here for a moment and just say, I've been saying for a little while that Trump is what a lot of people were worried Obama was. And they were largely right about Obama, I think, a lot of the criticisms. But Trump is all of those things. So people said, oh, Obama does not respect America. Obama does not respect the founding principles of America. Obama doesn't understand what sets America apart. And I think all of that is true about Trump. The only thing is, Trump says he loves America. He'll look out for America. He'll fight for America. But does he know what America is? Do you think Trump has read the Constitution, the Declaration? Do you think Trump have you ever heard him speak about rights, about individualism, about just capitalism? I mean, occasionally in some speech that someone else wrote for him that he delivers at the UN or something. But in his sort of endless monologues that Trump delivers, kind of like I do here, have you ever heard him talk about these things? So I think Trump largely is a lot of what people were worried Obama is. So kind of a little bit of food for thought there. But anyway, jumping back to around 2011. So Trump, he was making a big fuss about the birth certificate that he wanted Obama to produce. And he had a way of kind of making people care about certain things. So Trump would also talk about China, the China. I can't believe what we're letting them get away with, he would say. I do business with Chinese businessmen. They tell me, we can't believe what your country lets us get away with. They tell me. It's crazy. We're getting taken advantage of. Now, at that point, I was, like I've said earlier, I had read Ayn Rand's, much of her literature. This was, around 2011. At this point, I had read some of Rand's nonfiction as well. I was really starting to understand what Rand was about. So if you would have asked me, what should international trade look like? I would have said, I think it should be open, right? Like businessmen should be trading with other businessmen across the ocean. And that seems pretty sensible. But Trump was making this point that, no, the Chinese are taking advantage of us, so we can't let them do this. And I was like, okay, I get, he seems to know what he's talking about. He's a businessman. He's so sure of what he says. So the feeling I got about Trump, as I recall, from around 2011 was just kind of like, I want this guy in charge for a while. Let's just see how he does. Let's put him in charge of running the country, so to speak. I mean, he's not perfect, but it's so bad already. I mean, look, we've got all these terrible presidents, terrible politicians. Maybe Trump is the best he would be. If there ever was a time to take a risk, maybe this is it, I thought to myself. Now Trump ended up not running for president in 2011. So I still kind of kept an eye on him. He was doing like YouTube videos, and he claimed that he had done business with Gaddafi, the Libyan dictator. He said that he had ripped off Gaddafi because he doesn't like him. So he took money from Gaddafi and never delivered him the service. And that was kind of odd and sort of troubling, but also at the same time, like, okay, is he almost making like a moral statement saying, I will not honor an agreement with a dictator? He wasn't quite putting it that way. So I think he made it up. I think Trump made that up on a Fox News interview. He was just talking. He was on Fox and Friends, and out of nowhere he goes, "Oh, I've done business with Gaddafi. Excuse me, I've done business with Gaddafi. Yeah, I took his money and I never gave him what he paid me for." Like, I think he just kind of made that up. But anyway, he was on YouTube. He was periodically giving shout outs to Fox News, mentioning, "Oh yeah, I watch Greta. I watch Sean Hannity. I like them. They're great." I think he was sort of building a relationship with Fox and sort of shouting out some of his sort of shared audience, I suppose. And then he started to run for then he actually announced his candidacy, I think around 2015, this time for real. Now Trump was actually running for president. Now at this point, I had a much more mature take on politics, I think, based on, listening to other, objectivists, people like Yaron Brook. I mean, at this point, I'd heard I read more by Ayn Rand, heard a lot more of her lectures and Q&As, et cetera, et cetera. I had a much more mature understanding of politics and the way that philosophy works with politics. And I knew that kind of the things that are wrong with Trump are really wrong, like policy-wise. I knew this whole Chinese thing he's making a fuss over. He's not exactly advocating for capitalism. It's more like he's treating America like a business that's being run, and China is a competitor business, and that is not capitalism. So I kind of knew enough in 2015, 2016 to know that Trump is not my guy. I don't kind of want him in charge anymore, but still I wondered, like, is he maybe the best we could do right now, with considering how bad the left has gotten, considering how sort of spineless Republicans have gotten. So I sort of kind of watched with some interest as things sort of transpired. And now Trump was largely pushed by Breitbart. He was pushed by Breitbart, the website, and he was actually pushed by Andrew Breitbart, the human being, the person, rest his soul. And, you know, people often say, oh, if Andrew Breitbart could see what his company became, he must be rolling over in his grave. But I disagree with that. I mean, I like the guy kind of, but he was this real big tent, anti-left, big tent sort of new right type of figure. He was into Trump. He knew damn well, and speaking of Andrew, he knew that Trump was a birther, that he was tapping into this conspiratorial, sort of xenophobic elements of the US. So he knew that. He knew that that's what Trump sort of brings to the table, and he was sort of into it. Not necessarily into that aspect of Trump, but Breitbart, he knew what he was sort of pushing by saying nice things about Trump. So I don't buy this whole like thing you hear from people like Ben Shapiro, like, oh, if Andrew Breitbart could see what his website became, he would. I think Breitbart would basically be the same as his website became. Over time, you would see him move farther into this sort of new right, ugly type of thing that Breitbart became. And they helped push Trump. And now, speaking of Breitbart and the new right, there was a guy named Milo Yiannopoulos, and around, I guess this must have been around early 2016, you know, getting close to the election. This was the year of the big election. A friend of mine said, hey, let's go watch that Milo guy talk at this college. My friend said, he said, I just want to go see the social justice warriors shouting him down and protesting. And I said, I don't know what most of those words mean. It's early 2016. I'm not familiar with that terminology, and I'm vaguely familiar with who Milo is. But yeah, I guess let's go watch him talk. So we went to either UCLA or some other campus and watched the event. Yes, there were protests. They blocked off the entrance. People were running around the back to get inside. And Dave Rubin was there as sort of a surprise, younger Dave Rubin, no beard, Dave Rubin. What's it all about? What happened to the left? Dave Rubin of early 2016. And he was there like to interview Milo as sort of a surprise. And the event was disrupted by the leftist students. And I saw the audience start to chant, build the wall. Build the wall. That was kind of their response to the leftists, to the social justice warriors. They were chanting, build the wall. And I thought that was pretty ugly. I'm not into that. I mean, I'm all for, I guess, like pushing back and maybe even taunting your agitators or something. But that's what you're about. Like, that's what you want to sort of get behind. So I kind of knew right then this whole Trump thing is not healthy. It's not bringing out the best in us as Americans, and it's not a good opposition to the left. There's a much more principled route to go, and this is not it. And Milo said something interesting at the event. I remember he said policy doesn't matter. In English, I'll translate that. Policy doesn't matter, he said. And I think what he was saying was, it's not about Trump's exact policy. It's not about Trump's exact policy. Well, is he going to be good on trade? Is he going to be bad on this, bad on that? It's about that he is a big FU. He is a big middle finger to the establishment, to the politically correct establishment. That's what Milo was saying. And I thought, yeah, I guess I see that. I guess it seems to be happening. I'm not going to vote for either candidate, but let's see what happens. And we saw what happened. First of all, that whole build the wall, that element of the Republican Party has become louder and more sort of, they basically taken over more, like even more of the Republican Party. And I think you kind of see the sort of culmination of the Trump era in the Capitol storming of last week or a couple of weeks ago. And I know people are going to say not all Trump voters and Trump fans support that, obviously. But the fact that that took place, I think, is sort of what Trump brought out of the Republicans, brought out of this sort of new right, this sort of, I'll say, fascist recklessness. This, and, you know, read about fascism, you know, obviously read Leonard Peikoff's The Ominous Parallels, an excellent book, but also read a book by Jonah Goldberg called Liberal Fascism, where he walks you through the history and development of fascism. And it's really good. I read it, you know, 10, 12 years ago, and I recall Goldberg emphasizing this aspect of fascism that is like, something needs to happen now, just like a movement for the sake of movement, you know, no real goal, no real exact plan in place. So it's not like communism, which is this grandiose kind of vision of what's possible, what's going to be in the future. Fascism, the way I put it, is like, it's communism on crack. Fascism is communism on crack. It's like Trotsky or someone smoked crack one day and said, let's do this. And just, that's it. Like we're running out, we're storming the campus, we're storming the streets. And yes, obviously the left has become very fascist with their disruption of people's speech, with their extreme violence that we've seen in various instances over the last several years, obviously. But I think what we've seen on the right has been this not only violent, but this reckless, restless type of violence that is very, very disheartening to see. And that is, I think, what we saw at the Capitol, largely inspired by not necessarily the instructions of Donald Trump, but what it is that he brings out of people. And I would offer to the audience, look, Trump is leaving, all right? We're not arguing over whether he's staying or not. He's leaving tomorrow. So I will offer you something to chew on, something to think about. I think you can see why philosophy matters. And there is a kernel of truth in what Milo said all those years ago when he said policy doesn't matter. Yes, policy obviously matters. It has existential consequences right away, but also it's how you arrive at the policies that matter. It's why the policies were chosen that matters. So it's not only a political policy, it's how you arrive there. And now I think I understand why Ayn Rand would never vote libertarian, no matter how many of their policies were friendly to capitalism. It's how you arrive at capitalism that matters most. And if you don't have a good epistemology, if you don't have a philosophy and an ethics, a worldview, a method of arriving at your conclusions, then your conclusions are fickle. And you can see that a lot of former free market people have gone full Trump. They've gotten full protectionist. You know, they become tariff men. And even worse, they've become apologetic for the storming of the Capitol. By apologetic, I mean they're kind of downplaying the gravity of the situation. They're downplaying how severe and horrific it is. So you kind of see why philosophy matters. And you can also see, I think, this is real next level introspective stuff here. Think about, if you understand what I'm saying, if this is vibing with any of you, maybe you could sort of see the humanity of some of the people who really, really hated Trump this whole time. Not only on our side, not only the objectivists that rightfully hated Trump for all the right reasons, I think, but even some of these sort of mainstream voices that were constantly talking about how bad Trump is. Maybe they were, in many cases, hating Trump for the right reasons. They could sense that Trump is sort of discarding rule of law. He is sort of bypassing the sort of formality of the political process. He's sort of bypassing the respect that America is about. Respect for due process. Respect for rule of law, not of men. So it's just something to think about. If you think I'm completely out of my mind here, that's, your obviously your prerogative as well. And I think the final piece of the puzzle, like the final aha moment for me, was on election night this last November, seeing Trump get up there and declare his own victory on Tuesday night, the election night, declare his own victory and saying, I'm suing to make them stop counting votes. So this was before all the so-called proof of election fraud. And to this day, people are arguing there was voter fraud. There was voter fraud. Again, method matters. Even if there was voter fraud, how does Trump know that on election night? How do his supporters know that on election night yet? It's all about method to me. So if somebody is declaring things arbitrarily, we can throw everything that person says in the trash and avoid them moving forward. So please let's learn the lesson of the last several years, the lesson that Donald Trump, I think, taught us, though it was never his intention. Or maybe it was. Hey, maybe this was some big Andy Kaufman type of stunt that he pulled. I don't think it was, but he is sort of a master marketer. So nothing would surprise me at this point. Anyway, jokes aside, let's try to learn this lesson that epistemology matters. Philosophy matters. Don't be afraid of the word epistemology. Method. It's all about the method matters. It's my new motto in life. Method matters. It's how you arrive at your conclusion. In politics, how did you arrive at this policy? You may be tempted to go with this loudmouth sort of wannabe strong man when he says, oh, I'll look out for this country. I'll take care of us. I'll drain the swamp. You may be tempted by that. I was in my younger years. I even kind of was a little bit open-minded about it in 2016 and thinking like, all right, whatever, it's happening. Let's see how this works out. But again, the final aha moment for me was on election night when I realized this is a disaster. This country is not going to be the same after this. And by the way, did Trump tame the left? They've gotten worse. We've got the squad, right? The four horsewomen, as I think he called them, Ilhan Omar, AOC, and the two others. They're loud. They're elected into office. The Democrats have gotten, more leftist under Trump, and because they have this big doofus to rail against, to say, look how bad Trump is. Let's rail against him. So luckily, it looks like the Dems are moving towards the center. They're realizing that most Americans are not ready for what it is that AOC is pushing. So hopefully the Democrats are kind of moving towards the center. And I hope Republicans do as well. That is, they move away from this populist, new right, sort of emotionalist type of nationalism that we've seen emerge on the right. Thank you for joining us today. This has been quite an interesting episode for me, an interesting sort of retrospective, introspective. Thank you, Gene and Mary Aline, for your super chats. Thank you, all of you in the chat room, for participating. Thank you, all of you, for watching. And I don't have any announcements for later today or anything like that, but let's have a nice final Trump day and keep your wits about you. Remember, method matters, philosophy matters. And now that maybe some of you have realized Trump is not the god that people thought he is, he actually is leaving office. Time to kind of look at what's left of your life and just kind of ask, what's next? What am I in control of? What can I do with my life? Ask yourself that. And I hope you report wonderful things in the future. I hope to see you succeed if you follow a rational path. We'll be back here tomorrow on the Daily Objective here at the Ayn Rand Center UK. Thank you again. Thank you, Razi, behind the scenes, and goodbye.